Hey guys, Chris at the Ultimate Recycler. This timber ladder, an old A-frame ladder I picked up in a recent shed clean out. It's pretty rough. It's not really saleable how it is because the back struts are all broken off it. It's very wobbly. You certainly couldn't climb up it, but it's still a nice decorative piece. So we're not going to do a full restoration on this. It's going to be a fairly quick video. All I'm going to do is trick it up a bit, make it saleable, keep it in the rustic theme, so I'm not going to sand it all back or anything. A few things I've got to do. It's missing the bottom step, so I thought I might just cut it off at that bottom step mark and make the whole thing a little bit shorter. The advantages of that is that this stay on the back is split at the ends, but because we'll be moving it up a bit higher and it tapers, we'll then have enough timber to reuse that piece. Also on the back it would have had original cross bracing, and that's all that's left of it. And I've got a little bit of weathered timber which will make up just a couple of braces. So relatively small amount of work, and it's going to turn a ladder that's, be pretty hard to get much for because it's so wonky and rickety into quite a saleable piece, and I'll be selling it at the shop. So let's hop to it and make a start. Alright, I've got the ladder in my workshop. Still very cluttered in here. I'm gradually getting things organised. Those of you who follow my channel would have perhaps done a shed tour, but I'm gradually getting it all fixed up. I've done this corner today, put a set of lights up, and eventually I'll get rid of all this clutter in the middle and I'll have some room to do something. Anyway, well, back to this ladder. That's what we're talking about today. I'm going to start by taking just the old nails out of the bottom section. I'll cut that off. As I said, I'll cut it off where that bottom step was, and that'll give me the right angle. And the rest of the steps are pretty good. We'll get rid of this old hay band. The wood screws in the sides there are probably okay. I'll see if they tighten up, but if they don't, I'll put some longer ones in, and that will really help brace the ladder as well by having all the steps tight. But it's a really nice old ladder. It's got a lot of character. I like the top step with all the old paint on it. So it's actually in pretty good condition other than what you saw in the initial part of this video. There's no bad rotting, no splits, no borer damage, and it does have a nice lot of character. So we'll start by trimming up these legs on this side, and we'll remove some nails and the string, and then we'll look at tightening up the steps perhaps first. So I've spun the ladder around. Now this piece we want to take off the back. That was attached to there. There's no screws left there, so we'll have to find some screws. We will need to trim that section up a little bit, and same with the other side. And as we don't want to lose too much length, I'm not going to just break that out of there. It probably would break out pretty easily, but we'll try and reuse the screws anyway, so hopefully they undo. Okay, no problems there. And they're pretty rusty in the thread, so I might use some new screws, but I'm not going to use Phillips head ones. I'll use the old style slotted wood screws. We want to stay in character with the old ladder. Nothing worse, I think, than seeing modern Phillips head screws in nice old timber. It just doesn't sit right with me. Okay, so that's got that piece out. We'll be able to use that piece no problems. I'll work out where it's going to go and we'll trim it up. Probably trim up both ends so that then we can have some nice clean holes for the screws to go in. So I've propped those two rails up, as you can see, with a stool and a piece of wood. And next we can trim up these legs. Alright, there we go. It's given it some good sturdy feet. And the offcuts, well, we don't need those for anything. And it is a pretty chilly night in the old shed, so we may as well put the parts of the ladder we don't need to good use. Now we need to reposition the back stay. It doesn't really matter where it goes, so we're going to slide it up far enough so that the taper will allow for us to trim the old edge off, and we'll have a nice neat edge, and we'll put some new holes through. So that should be high enough. And then obviously to have the ladder stand up properly, we're going to have to trim these other legs back, and we'll work out the angle of those a bit later on. But let's get this stay on, and then as I said earlier, we do need to tighten up the steps on the other side. I was going to do that first, but I got distracted with these legs, so it doesn't really matter what order we do it in. So I think we'll trim this stay up first, and then we'll attach that. So I've turned the ladder over, and that way we can press the legs together where it folds, and we can get a mark. You can see I've just marked that. I've marked the other side. We'll trim that up now, and we need to find some screws. Okay, I've found some wood screws that will do the job. They're the old style slotted screw. Unfortunately, they're kind of new looking. I would have preferred to have nice rusty ones to use. And I have got a whole heap of old screws that I got out of a shed deal many years ago, and I've saved them. They've been really handy. They're new old stock, and a lot of them have got a bit of surface rust, which makes them great for jobs like this. But they're all a bit large for the job, so these ones will do. I'm not going to get too precious. At least they're not Phillips head. So we'll drill a couple of holes now so that we can install those. Now I've clamped these outer legs to the frame of the ladder with a large clamp, and I've put a piece of ply, well, it's actually MDF, but it's very thin MDF in there. I haven't got one the other side, and that'll give enough gap, be half of that gap on each side, which means the ladder will fold up nicely and the legs will slide past each other without jamming. Now we just need to mark where we're going to drill some holes for the screws, which obviously they need to go central into the timber below, and we need to drill a hole that's just a whisker wider than the thread on the wood screw. Okay, we've started those holes. We'll now take it off and we'll drill right through them, and we'll need to do the same the other side. So the idea there, of course, is that the screw won't actually thread into this piece, and it allows it to pull this piece down hard onto that leg there. So we're going to drill a fine hole into the leg, but obviously it has to be a smaller hole, otherwise the screw won't grab. So we'll find a drill bit that's just smaller than the threaded section of the screw. And the last thing to do, because these are countersunk screws, I have got a countersinking tool somewhere, and I'm not sure where it is, but you can actually use a larger drill bit, and we'll just plane the edge off the outer side of the hole there so that the head of the screw fits in nice and flush rather than sticking up as it does there. Now we want to make sure our finer drill bit will go deep enough, so that should be plenty, and it is a bit finer than the width of the thread, so the screw should pull in nicely. And the same the other side. Now just to touch it with a larger drill bit, that's all we need. Just give somewhere for the head of the screw to sit so it's nice and flush. And now, installation. I'm not going to worry about gluing it. These screws will pull into the hardwood nice and tight. It won't need glue. Besides, we're not going to the trouble we would be if we're fully restoring it or if we were making furniture. So it's just a matter of having it neat, robust and usable. And it's pulled up really nicely, nice and flush. Looks good. Now to put the rest in. All good, that tightened up beautifully. And those of you that have OCD tendencies will notice that the screw heads, the slots, are actually nicely aligned to the vertical. Not something I need to do, but you know, hey, looks good. Now it's all coming along nicely. I've got that brace secured, nice and solid. We can lift that half of the ladder up beautifully now, and you can hear that it just fits really neatly and snugly, slides together well. All we need to do now is to put some cross braces on it, and of course we need to shorten these other legs up, and then we're good to go. Now I've found some thin pine sort of slats. It's nice and weathered looking, but it'll make excellent bracing, so I just need to cut one to go on that angle and then one across the other angle, and then we'll have to trim them to suit the angles of the sides of the ladder and then join them in the middle. First one cut, as you can see, fits nice and neatly there. As far as the angles go, it's really easy just to lay the board where you want it and draw a line under it along the edge of the timber, and then basically trim it up. So that fits nice and snugly there. A little bit of a nick off the side of it, I'm not going to worry, it's all part of character. And the colour of the timber suits the ladder very nicely. So now I just need to cut another one, and then we'll do a bit of a fiddly join in the middle and then look at trimming those legs up at the right length. That's looking pretty neat now. So to get the join in the middle, I've just got these propped in there. I haven't screwed them or anything yet. So we're going to mark along that section there, and same on the other side. I'll clamp that together so it can't move, and then I can lift it off the ladder, turn it over and mark the other diagonals. So there, I've spun it over. We can now mark this side and the other side. And then we can take it apart, and what we're going to do is cut a slot halfway through in one and halfway through in the other. So that'll result in quite a neat join, and we probably will glue this one when we put it together and clamp it overnight. So I've just reinforced the lines where I want to cut, and I've measured halfway through the thickness of the piece of timber on both sides, and it's going to be easy enough to cut out because the pine's very soft. I'm going to use a tenon saw. You get a lot more control and more even depth than you do with one of these than you do with a panel saw. Now this is only a cheapie. It's a Work Zone one from Aldi. I didn't buy it new. I don't buy Aldi tools, but we clean out a lot of sheds, as many of you know, and sometimes we get tools that are useful. Now this one's pretty much brand new. It'll be fine for a job on the soft pine. So I'll cut a slot each end, and then we'll carefully chisel a bit out. You can see I've just left the edge of the line on there, so that'll ensure a nice snug fit. Okay, since it's a pretty wide slot, I've cut a couple of extra grooves in the middle down to the same depth, and now we'll work a chisel in there and just peel it off pretty easily. It's very soft, as I said, so it shouldn't present too much trouble. We don't want to go too deep though. We can always clean it up with a rasp. And there we go, a little bit of rasping, and it fits nice and snugly. Pretty neat. It's not super flush, but it's neat enough, and that will be excellent. So what I'm going to do is just make sure the angles are right. It has got a little bit of movement in there, so we'll make sure the angle's right. We'll sit it back on the back of the ladder, and I'll glue and clamp that. There's good surface area, so I think glue will be fine. Don't think we need to bother about putting screws in it. It's only a quick fix after all. And then we can fit this brace assembly. You can see roughly where it's going to go, and we'll have to put some screws into the side rails when it's all lined up. But we'll glue the cross first on the right angles, and then our job's pretty much done. We've just got to attach this and then shorten the legs. It's a couple of days later. It's another chilly night in my shed, so I've got the fire going. And I've just finished attaching these cross braces. I took the clamp off the middle, and I've screwed each corner with a little bit of glue, and the process there was exactly the same as when we put the strut on earlier. Drilled some holes, drilled a finer hole into the other bit, put a larger drill bit just to countersink them a bit, and that's all nice and secure and strong. So let's get to the leg adjustments and then we're finished. And the final step on this ladder job is just to cut the other long legs off the right length. So I've just put a straight edge across. I've opened the ladder out fully to its A-frame position, and because these bottom ones were the original step, the original first step, they'll be the right angle for the feet. So I've just lined that straight edge up, and I'll mark across the other side there, and that'll give us the right angle. So we'll trim those two up, and then we can put it outside, and next chance I get when it's daylight, we'll climb up it and see how strong it is. So I've brought the ladder back to the shop. It looks awesome. It sits nice and level. It doesn't matter that it's actually a little lower than it used to be. It still looks in proportion, and it's nice and sturdy. It doesn't wobble hardly at all now. I've got the angles right on the feet. So pretty happy with that. Now the moment of truth. Let's give it a test. Let's go up in the world. I'm climbing one-handed here. Beautiful. I can stand on the top step. No worries at all. Okay, I'm happy with that project. Probably put a little bit more work into it than I was planning to, but you know, if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing properly. So I'll leave that at the front of the shop today. I'll put a $100 price tag on that, and I'm sure someone will grab it as a decorator piece. Decorative or practical, old timber ladders with a bit of character bring pretty good money these days. Pretty happy with that. Thanks for watching. Look out for my next project. Bye.